You're here with the Vigilant Christian Mario, and you're here for another edition of New Age Movement Exposed. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my personal experience as a yoga instructor and how I realized that yoga is in fact a satanic spiritual practice that no one should be participating in. Now, I know right off the bat, now that sounds like an extreme claim, and it might be hard for a lot of you to believe, but please watch this entire video before making your conclusion on this subject. So things we're going to talk about is, like I said, my personal experience, as well as the spiritual roots of yoga and Christian yoga, which is gaining popularity in modern culture today, and how Christians should have nothing to do with this. So let's get right into it. So 7 years ago, I started to experience depression and anxiety, and I went to a psychologist, and a lot of psychologists nowadays are utilizing New Age occult techniques for healing. Now, this is exactly what happened to me. My psychologist would talk to me about meditations that I could use for the anxiety and the depression, and especially yoga. So it wasn't long before I got involved with yoga, and I absolutely loved it. So I started an apprenticeship at my local yoga center in Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga means moon and sun, light and dark, male and female. The principle behind it is to balance these polarities within yourself. Now, this is a flawed spiritual concept that I'm going to talk about in future videos, but just to give you an idea, this is what I was involved with. And this is extremely occult and at its very core satanic. Now, what does yoga actually mean? Well, if you go to Google right now and you put yoga, the definition that's going to come up is a Hindu spiritual and aesthetic discipline, a part of which include breath control, simple meditation, and the adoption of bodily postures. So I want you to notice right there, it says a Hindu spiritual practice. So it finds its roots in false religion. All right, so in my studies, I had to study the Bhagavad Gita, which is the Hindu spiritual text. And one thing also is to realize that each posture that you're doing when you do yoga is a posture of worship to a Hindu god. All right, so a lot of people, when they get involved with yoga, they don't have a clue about this. They're really clueless, they're doing it very naively. But at its spiritual roots, it's based on false religion. So we shouldn't have anything to do with this. Now, one of the other things that I got heavily involved with is Kundalini Yoga. Now, Kundalini Yoga is the most satanic yoga that you can possibly find out there. It's basically, the philosophy is that there is a dormant spiritual serpent at the base of the spine, and you will go through a process of what they call the Kundalini awakening. In the Kundalini awakening, it's said that the Kundalini serpent will then climb up your spine and go through the chakra system until it reaches the pineal gland and the crown chakra, where you will then experience what's called God realization. So as the serpent climbs and reaches the top, and the third eye is called the eye of wisdom, it will then convince you that you are a god, because the final step in yoga is God realization, which is to realize that you are God and that everything is God. Now, I do want to point out that in Genesis of the Bible, the serpent said to Eve that if we would eat from the fruit of the tree of knowledge and wisdom, that we would become gods. This is the same spiritual deception that we find in Kundalini Yoga. We awaken within ourselves at the base of our spine a spiritual serpent that will then climb, and through the third eye, the apple of wisdom, receive enlightenment, ascension, God realization. But this isn't true. This is Now, there is also a false Jesus that we find in yoga. And here is a false Christ. In the Word of God, the Bible, it talks about that there's going to be these false Christs. So you need to be very careful, because they're going to try and convince you that this Jesus is the real Jesus. He's the reincarnation of Buddha. I've already exposed that this is a false Christ. And he finds himself, of course, in yoga.